I think there's issues around the high street in the UK. We all, see the state of our high streets, but also you've got to say there's been bad leadership in the business as well. Good leaders listen, and I think the workforce, we as trade unions have been concerned about the direction, the travel of the business for quite some time. And here we are, thousands of families across the UK who are going to be impacted by this terrible decision. Probably about a quarter of the Wilko workers won't even be entitled to redundancy pay. They'll be getting put out of jobs without any redundancy pay because they've got short service with the business, they've got less than 2 years service. It's devastating news. And as I say, we do have to look at the whole process of administration, because when companies are in distress, there should be an obligation and a focus on trying to protect jobs.
It's interesting just hearing you there saying that lots of Wilko workers won't be entitled to money because they don't have the 2 years service. Obviously, Labour are looking at this. They're saying that they want to change workers' rights. It's the policy, spearheaded by Angela Rayner. I couldn't help noticing, though, her job title did change in the last reshuffle. She's no longer the Shadow Future Work Secretary. Are you a bit worried that Keir Starmer might be backsliding on some of that policies around workers' rights?
It's up to Keir Starmer to pick his teams, and I'm not concerned about job titles for the Labour Shadow Cabinet. I am concerned about the type of policy programme Labour's got. And actually, Labour has a radical policy programme around workers and trade union rights. There's a lot of commitments from Labour around collective rights and people having an effective trade union voice in the workplace, and we absolutely celebrate that fact.
What kind of thing, if you're a politician today, looking at what's happened with Wilko, what would you be doing to try and beef up some of the protection to stop something like this happening?
Well, the most important thing for working people, really, is having strong collective rights, having the right to bargain over their pay and conditions. It's outrageous, like a company like Amazon, which is very dependent on public sector contracts for its web services business. It's appalling that Amazon can use their might and clout to try and get round the law, which gives workers the right to be recognised, have their union recognised. Our members in Coventry and in Rugeley have been on strike trying to secure union recognition, and we've tried to use the provisions in the law to get that union recognition, and yet companies like Amazon, as I say, can use their financial clout and all the wherewithal that they've got to try and get round the legislation and try and stop workers having the right to be represented collectively through a union. So we want to tighten up the laws around union recognition. We want to have proper rights around collective bargaining. If people want a fair deal at work, they do that through having a collective voice. And one of the things we fought very hard over is the issue of equal pay. It is outrageous that 50 years after the Equal Pay Act, women are still getting discriminated against in the public sector and by companies like Asda. And Labour, we've secured a commitment which will tighten up equal pay legislation, and we think will go a long way to finally helping unions to end discrimination in the workplace.
Lots on the table for you at TUC conference. You can see you touching there on lots of the different issues that I'm sure you're going to be pushing at the conference. The one I do want to talk to you about as well is energy, because there's a lot of focus on net zero and the different paths to getting there. Keir Starmer has said that if he becomes Prime Minister, they want to end new oil and gas licences in the North Sea. What's your take on that policy?
Look, energy is a hugely complex issue. We think Labour have just got it wrong on oil and gas. The truth is oil and gas are going to be with us for many decades to come. And I think the challenge is to make the oil and gas industry, make sectors that are dependent on oil and gas less carbon intensive. And together we can do that. But, Labour sentiments are positive. They want to, we understand it, rebuild our industrial infrastructure. They want to rebuild our energy infrastructure. Sophie, our country feels like it's broken and our social fabric.
So just to come in, just to come in then, because if you say that Labour want to rebuild the infrastructure, they're saying, look, our new plan with the Green Prosperity Plan, that's going to bring loads of jobs. So what's the problem with ending oil and gas? Isn't that a good thing?
Well, the problem with ending oil and gas is that just a few miles up the coast, we have a factory which produces chlorine. That chlorine gives us clean water in this country. But gas is a feedstock for that industry. We've got energy-intensive industries in this part of the country still. They need gas to carry on working. This is a complex area and complex issue. And in terms of green jobs, there's been a lot of talk about green jobs. But the truth is, the renewables industry, and we've got wind farms all across our coastlines and all over our hills, they're all invariably produced in Indonesia, China, or in sovereign oil and gas-backed wealth fund backyards in the Middle East. We've been producing jobs in renewables anywhere but the UK. So it's welcome that Labour want to talk about an industrial plan, an industrial strategy. America's developed an industrial strategy. The European Union has, but under the Tories, Britain is lagging behind. And there's a real opportunity here. For all the points of disagreement that we've got, we do understand that we can have a plan to rebuild Britain, level up communities, better paid jobs, better skills, and proper unionised jobs as well.
You've also, it's interesting to hear your sort of take on oil and gas. You've also called for a delay in the expansion of the ULEZ, the Ultra Low Emission Zone. Some would say that the focus on green is going to cost Labour votes at the election if it's seen that it's going to hit people in the pockets. Is that something that you agree with?
People are going through this cost of living crisis. Mortgages are going through the roof, filling up your cars got more expensive, food bills absolutely astronomical. And we have to listen to the legitimate concerns of people. What is happening? The climate emergency is real. It poses an existential threat to the planet. We don't want to have dirty air in our cities, but we have to listen to the legitimate concerns of ordinary people, many of whom are struggling to get by. And I listen to our delivery van drivers, our people who are doing deliveries in our city centres. I listen to workers who are on shifts, care workers and in the NHS, and many of them are concerned that ULEZ and the way it's been introduced could put an extra financial burden on them. So we need to make sure that in any transition it is done fairly, and that people believe they're getting a fair and reasonable deal, and that's not what has happened so far. We have wind farms that cost a fortune, that are subsidised disproportionately by the lowest paid, and the jobs we were promised have never materialised. So we want to move to net zero, we want clean air, but people have to believe that it's fair, it's reasonable, the costs are being distributed fairly, and very importantly, that we're getting the jobs created that we've been long promised.